The chair scraped backward. That sound, I still hear it sometimes when a room goes quiet in an unexpected way. The scrape, then nothing for maybe 2 seconds. Then the scrape forward again, but not all the way. That was the first thing I noticed. Not what was being said, not who was standing where. Just that scrape and the half-second of silence that followed it, like the room was holding its breath. I should start at the beginning, I guess. The beginning is not what anyone thinks it is. I was in that hearing room for 6 hours that day. I set up my equipment 30 minutes before anyone walked in. I ran the audio check twice because something in the system sounded off and nobody else seemed to hear it but me. The stenographer next to me, she had been doing this longer than I had, she told me to leave it alone. She said the room always sounds strange when it's empty. She was right. But I ran the check again anyway. This is the part I can still see clearly. The way the light came through the windows on the east side. It hit the table at an angle that made the wood look almost orange for about 20 minutes, and then the clouds moved and it went back to plain brown. I noticed that because I had nothing else to notice yet. The room was empty and I was waiting. I would find out later why that mattered, the light, the angle of it, but at the time I thought it was nothing. The producer had said something to me that morning that I did not think about until much later. She said, and I remember the exact words because they seemed odd at the time, she said, "Keep the mics open during the break, don't cut anything." I asked her why. She said there might be something worth catching. I thought she was talking about the other side, the one everyone expected to be interesting. I did not think she meant the quiet one. I was wrong about that. The room started to fill around 9, not all at once, in stages. Staff people first moving papers, adjusting chairs, then the cameras, 3 of them at first, then a 4th was brought in at the last minute, which is something I remember because it meant the angle changed and I had to recalibrate my listening position. The 4th camera went in the back corner, high angle. Everything looks smaller from a high angle, I know that now. Then the staff from the other side. The ones in suits who talked to each other in low voices and never looked at anyone who wasn't also in a suit. I counted them. 7, plus 2 people I did not recognize who sat in the front row and never said a word to anyone. I would find out later who one of them was. The other one I still don't know. There was a piece of paper already on the table when everyone arrived. It was sitting in front of the empty chair, the chair that would be his chair, the one he would sit in and push back from the table and scrape across the floor the way I still hear sometimes. The paper had writing on it. I couldn't read it from where I was standing. Nobody addressed it. It just sat there, face up, like it had been waiting. At the time, I thought it was nothing. I almost stopped this story here. I want you to know that. I thought about just not going further because the next part is the part I have been holding on to, and once I say it, it becomes real in a way I can't undo. But you came this far and I think you deserve the part that matters. He walked in at 9:17, I know because I looked at my equipment at the same time. He came through the door on the left side, the one that leads to the hallway where the staff waits. He was talking to someone before he got to the threshold. I could hear the tail end of it through the open door, a phone call, I think, or a conversation with whoever was walking beside him. The words were low and fast. Then the door swung open and he was in the room and the conversation stopped and his face changed. Not much, just enough. The way a person's face changes when they know the cameras are on them, even before they get to the chair. He shook hands with 2 people along the way, brief shakes, the kind that don't mean anything. Then he sat down and the chair scraped and the room went quiet for half a second. I remember thinking, this is the moment. The cameras were already rolling, the lights were hot, the air was on, humming the way it always hums when a room is full of equipment. And he sat down and looked at the empty chair across from him and I remember thinking, he's not worried yet. He doesn't know what's coming. And that was the first tell. The first tell was the swallow. I almost missed it because I was focused on the audio levels, but I heard it. Right after the first question was asked by someone on the other side, the side that was supposed to be in charge of the room, the sound was wrong. It came 1 beat too late. Not a gasp, not a cough, just a swallow that should have come immediately, and instead it came after a pause, like his throat was deciding whether to do it. Or not, like the question landed somewhere unexpected, and his body needed a second to catch up. That was the first thing that told me something was off. I want you to stay with me through the next part because this is where it gets interesting, and I almost didn't include it, but I think you need to know what I saw. The room was set up the way rooms like this are always set up. Long table, 2 sides facing each other, cameras on 2 angles, the chairman at one end, the witness at the other. Staff behind them in folding chairs along the walls. And me near the back watching the meters, listening through my headphones for anything that might need adjustment. She came in last, the one who would be across from him. She walked in without talking to anyone and sat down in the empty chair and put her folder on the table and opened it. That was it. No shaking hands, no low conversations with staff. She just sat down and looked at her papers and waited. And I remember thinking, she's not nervous. Everyone else in the room was nervous, even the ones who looked calm. You could see it in their hands, in the way they checked their phones one more time, in the way they kept glancing at the door. But she sat there like she had done this before, like she knew exactly how this was going to go. I don't know why this stuck with me, but it did. The second tell came about 40 minutes in. The chairman had asked a question, a long one, the kind that takes a minute to get through, and while it was being asked I watched his hands, his right hand. It kept brushing the edge of the table, not tapping, not drumming, just brushing, slow and even, like he was feeling for something. And then the question ended and he opened his mouth to answer and his hand stopped. It just stopped mid-brush and went flat on the table and didn't move again until after his answer was done. That's when I knew, not what was going to happen, I didn't know that, but I knew something was happening that he wasn't expecting. The hand gave it away. I have to keep going because the part I need to tell you is coming up, and I need you to understand the setup or it won't land the way it should. There was a moment, and I almost didn't include this because it seems small, but it isn't, when he whispered something to the aide sitting next to him. I was close enough to hear it because of where I was standing and because his voice was lower than it should have been for the room. He said, "I don't know why this is taking so long," and the aide nodded and didn't say anything back. At the time I thought he was just impatient, waiting for something to start maybe, or waiting for something to end. But now I think he was confused. I think he thought this was going to be easier than it was, and when it wasn't, he didn't know how to adjust. This is the part I can still see clearly, the aide leaning in, the whisper, the way his jaw tightened right after. The third tell was the water. He took a sip at the wrong moment, not during a break, I want to be clear about that, during testimony. Someone was saying something, I don't remember who, and it was clearly something he disagreed with, and instead of waiting for a pause, instead of waiting until it was his turn to speak, he reached for the glass and drank. A full sip, in the middle of a sentence. And then he set it down, and the glass hit the table harder than it should have, and everyone in the front row heard it. The silence that followed was different from the other silences. This one had something in it, embarrassment maybe, or anger, or both. I know what I heard in the room after that. I heard the chairman clear his throat. I heard someone behind me shift in their chair. I heard the air conditioning come on, the same hum I'd been hearing all morning but somehow louder now. And I heard nothing from the side that had just taken the sip. No defense, no counter, just the silence and the hum and the waiting. You know what, I almost stopped here again. I really did. Because the next part is the one that matters, and once I say it you'll understand why I haven't told anyone before. But I think you're still listening. I think you're waiting for the part that nobody else was there for. I'm going to give it to you now. There was a break, 15 minutes. The cameras were still on but everyone moved. Staff brought water. The chairman stepped out. The witnesses on both sides stayed at the table mostly, but the room was moving around them. And during that break she asked him something, not out loud, not into a microphone. She leaned across the table, just slightly, just enough, and she said something in a voice that didn't carry. I couldn't hear the words. I was too far away and the room was too loud with all the people moving around. But I saw his face. He didn't answer. He picked up his water glass and took another sip and set it down and looked at his papers and didn't say anything. She waited about 3 seconds. ND, then she smiled. Not a big smile, not a mean one, just a small smile that meant something. And she went back to her papers too. And that was it. The cameras didn't catch it. The audio didn't pick it up. Nobody in the room seemed to notice except me. But that was the moment. That was when the whole thing shifted. I know it sounds small. A question asked off mic, a silence answered with a smile, but I was there. I saw what it did to him. The way he sat back in his chair. The way his shoulders dropped just slightly. The way he stopped brushing the edge of the table and put both hands flat on it instead, like he was bracing for something. He didn't know what she had asked. I could see that. He didn't know what she meant, but he knew it mattered. He knew she knew something he didn't. And for the rest of the hearing he was different, not defeated, not broken, just different, like a person who had been playing a game and just found out the rules were different than they thought. Afterward, I went back to the equipment room and started the upload. The footage was already being sent to the control room for the broadcast, but I had my own copy, the raw one, the one with all the channels separate. I was reviewing it for quality when I heard someone come in behind me. It was her, the one who had asked the question. She wasn't supposed to be in the equipment room. Nobody was except staff. But she walked in and stood by the door and looked at me and said, "Did you get the audio on that?" I said yes. She nodded and looked at the screens for a moment, and then she said, "Let me know if you need anything else." And she left. She didn't ask me to delete it. She didn't ask me to keep it quiet. She just asked if I had gotten it, and when I said yes, she walked out like the conversation was over. I think about that a lot. The way she knew exactly what she had done and didn't need anyone else to know it too. The last thing I want to tell you is about the third withheld detail. I planted it early, and I never explained it, and I think you deserve to know. The piece of paper on the table, the one that was there before anyone arrived, I found out later what was on it. I found out who put it there and why. It was a list, names, a short list, maybe 6 or 7, the names of people who had been consulted before the hearing, people who had been asked what questions to ask and what answers to expect, a list of the people who thought they knew how this was going to go. My name was not on the list, neither was hers, and I think that was the point. I still can't watch the footage when it replays. I've seen it happen. The clips come back around every few months, someone shares it, someone asks me if I remember it, and I say yes, and I change the channel or close the tab or scroll past it. Every single time. Not because it upsets me, not because I'm embarrassed or proud or any of the things you might think. I can't watch it because the footage shows what happened, and what happened is not what I saw. The footage shows a hearing, a confrontation, a back and forth that looked like a lot of other back and forths. What I saw was something else, something smaller and stranger and more quiet than anything a camera could catch. I saw a question asked during a break that changed everything. I saw the moment one person knew something the other person didn't. I saw the chair scrape backward one last time, and this time he didn't scrape it forward again. And I can't watch it because when I do, I see what the cameras missed, and I hear the audio that didn't get recorded, and I watch the room move on like nothing happened. And it makes me feel like I'm the only person who knows the story.